All right, friends, I got a big road trip ahead of me tomorrow, so let's get straight into the action and see what happens. All right, it's kicking up the hand. Here we go. All right, let's see. Stack sizes are fairly deep. Before anything else, we look at stack sizes. We'll be playing this hand from Max's perspective. Josh is going to be the primary villain. Alec is not relevant in this hand, and there's a random Israeli guy again in this spot. He keeps on showing up apparently in these situations. Blinds are 10-20, so we're playing roughly, yeah, what was that, 90 big blinds deep plus, something like that. Oh no, although Josh is 139, so we're playing like 70 big blinds effectively deep over here, which is deep enough to, factor, deep, relatively deeper stacks. So we can be set mining. When you have deeper stacks, you can play a little more creatively in position. We, though, are playing for Max's hand, for Max's position, so we're going to be out of position. So that means that's our number one consideration, and we should be careful about that in the first place. So let's see. Okay, now we're going to play as if we don't know what Josh has. We have ace-8 in the small blind. Ace-8 is a decent hand in the small blind. It's a hand. This is interesting. Let's see. I believe Josh is going to limp to us. Yep, he limps. Alec limps, and it's on us. Now, over here, with a limp and a call, there's 70 bucks in the pot at this point. That means 20, 40, 60 from the big blind and 70 from the small blind. So over here, yeah, you're definitely not folding in this situation, but you may want to consider raising here to define value. Now, irrespective, if we, there are two things that we need to factor in here. Number one is, are we raising a lot? Are we considered wild? The reason why I'm asking that is because we do not want to play ace-8 out of position. It's too easy to be playing ace-8 out of position. What's going to call us? Ace-king, ace-queen, although ace-king really shouldn't be here, although we see that it is. But ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack, ace-10, even ace-9. And what's going to fold here? Probably ace-7, ace-6, ace-4, ace-3. So meaning ace-8 is one of the, if we get called here, we're going to be getting called very often by dominant aces, although there are plenty other, pocket pairs and suited connectors and things like that, and gappers that would call us. So if our reputation, and this all depends on our table image over here. If my table image is tight, which I suspect Max's is not, if our table image is tight, then I would certainly be raising here. I'd be raising big. I'd be raising probably limping is 20. I'd probably raising till around 110. I'd be raising big because I think that a lot of the time I would take down the entire pot pre-flop. However, if our raising range is, if our reputation is as a more wild player, then we're not going to get credit with our raises, and we'll probably be called by a bunch of spots. So I actually, do like calling here. In the rare case, especially with two limpers under the, ahead of us, we could call here. We have to be careful because these guys, their ranges are massive, and we still have a guy to act after us. So as played, we call, and the random Israeli guy checks. Okay. Now flop comes ace king 7. Now that's good for us, but it's not great for us. Why is that good for us? Because we have top pair. However, our number one consideration here is we are out of position to 3 players in the pot, and there are a lot of hands that beat us here. Set of 7s is very possible for these guys. If these guys are wide enough, king 7 is possible. Ace 7, all 3 suited ace 7s are certainly possible. Ace 9, ace 10, ace jack, ace queen, ace. It's funny because I really wouldn't have ace king here, honestly, even though he has that. It's just such an unusual hand to limp with. But, the stronger aces are certainly here. So this is a hand. It's interesting. Out of position, believe it or not, ace 8 is a hand that I'm actually looking to fold. I'm not looking to bet with. I'm looking to check. And if there is a raise, I'm likely folding, even out of position. And if there's a raise and a call, then I'm definitely folding. The reason why is, let's say random Israeli guy raises, and then one of these 2 guys calls. This guy's announcing he's got something worthwhile of raising into 3 other people. And then these guys are saying, oh yeah, well, we have something worthy of calling. Now there's a diamond draw on the board, so that's of course there. There's a gut shot draw. Anybody with queen jack, queen 10, jack 10, any combination of that has a gut shot, as well. So you could have people calling with with a gut shot and and a diamond or two hearts. If they have a gut shot and a backdoor straight flush draw, meaning that two cards would bring them a flush draw, that may be enough for them to call. So there are a lot of hands that are weaker than us that would call, but there are also a lot of hands that are stronger than us that would certainly call. And so I like checking here and evaluating based on what happens, but based on what happens in the future, because we can get in a lot of trouble with ace 8 against a stronger ace, or against a lot of other hands, or against flush draws. There's so much that can fold to us that can bring us trouble. If I was in position and it checked to me, meaning if I was over here on the button and I had ace 8 and they all checked to me, then I would definitely be betting, or I would definitely consider betting. With two diamonds on the board, yeah, I would be betting. I'd be betting probably around half pot, maybe a little bit wider, around 50. And the reason why is because I would bet smaller rather than larger, because when I'm betting larger, I'm really only incentivizing hands that beat me to call. When I'm betting smaller, then a lot of hands like king 10, like king 10, like backdoor draws, they may think, at this price, maybe, yeah, I will call. But that's only on the button. Over here, I think this is a definite check. And okay, so I'm not a huge fan of this bet. We bet a full pot bet. The reason why I'm not a big fan of this bet is as follows. And I think I just said this before. Every single hand that beats us is calling. Although that's not true. Well, yeah. Let's see what calls us. What calls us? Better aces are certainly calling us. Ace 10, ace jack. Ace 9. We may get ace 9 to fold actually, but but ace 10, ace jack, ace queen. Maybe ace king if a guy with limp ace king. They all beat us. Ace 7 of course beats us, but we do have a lot of flush draws that call, and we do have a lot of combinations like something like queen 10 of hearts that would call us with a backdoor heart draw, and the gut shot straight draw, that could call us. But again, we're disincentivizing that with such a large bet. If we bet smaller, we can have lots of those middling hands and lots of those flush draws that call us. With such a large bet, we're basically chasing away any hand that we would want to call, but pricing in any hand that would beat us. So I definitely don't like this. I would check this totally. But if I was in position, I'd probably be betting 45, 50. I want to allow hands that I beat to come along for the ride over here. So I'm not crazy about this this bet, and certainly not the bet size. I like check calling here, and by the way, maybe even check folding. Meaning if I checked, and then if we checked, and then this guy bets full pot 80, I'd give up ace 8 right here pre-flop even. There's too much. I'm not re-raising with it, and if I'm calling, think about all the cards that would give me trouble on the turn. Every diamond in the deck gives me trouble. Every jack, every queen, every 10, every card basically, because any card that's below us, ace 5, ace 4, ace 3 gives us trouble because they could be two pairing on us. The few aces that we're ahead of couldn't be catching up. There's just so much of this deck that would give me fits. So that's why I would be folding if I checked through and somebody bet. But okay, so let's see. So we bet. We get one fold. He calls, as we know, and he folds. Okay, so we thinned the field, but now before we see the turn, what can Josh have in this situation? Josh can have a better ace than us. Ace 9, ace 7, ace 9, ace 10, ace jack, ace queen, and ace king are all in his range. And again, ace king really shouldn't show up here, but if this is a weaker game and that's possible he would limp that, then it does show up there. And obviously we know that he had that. So that, but he the hands, he's probably calling with any number of those aces. He can be calling us with any number of flush draws. And straight draws. So again, but the range of hands, I think that's more combinations of hands that beat us than combinations of hands that are drawing. So I would not be betting here again. He's basically defined his range as better than us because there's very, very little that we beat over here, other than flush draws, and there's not enough of them to justify. Okay, turn is a great card for us. Well, actually, whoops. Stop. What did I do? Okay, turn is a great card for us. The reason the turn is a great card for us is a terrible card for us is because, well, blah, blah, blah. Restart. Turn is a mixed card for us. It brings the third diamond. Okay, so now literally 100% of the hands that we could be up against have beaten us. With the exception of like, a queen 10 of hearts kind of hand. But that's very rare. It may not even show up here. But every single diamond, anything that he would have called us with, is a better ace than us or a diamond draw, and they all got here. So even though it looks good to us at first glance because we hit the trip aces, really this is a bad board for us. There's nothing left that we really can beat here. So I'd be checking, and because we can hold for a full house on the river, I maybe would call a bet, but this is already a pretty swollen pot at 720. And again, look what we effectively did here with our early betting, especially pre-flop, is that what we effectively did here was we swelled the pot up. I don't like that we bet that flop the way we did, and then that build a plot larger. Okay. Any case, let's see further. Okay, river is a 7. Now the river really should be a good card for us. We see here that it wasn't a good card for us, but the river gives us, the aces, fulls, of sevens, full house. The only thing that's beating us are two unlikely hands, ace, king, and pocket sevens. Although he could have pocket sevens, there's only one combination of that with two sevens on the board. And though he could have ace king, it's unlikely also, although that's what he had. So I certainly, I certainly do like this river. And at this point, after our early mistakes of loading the pot, I would be excited here and I would be betting. And again, I would be betting, but if I got re-raised, I would seriously consider folding, and I certainly would not be, re-raising over the top. But let's see what happens as it plays out. Okay, so we bet half pot. I think that's perfect over here. I would even bet more a little bit. I'd probably bet 420, 440, because you want to make it look like here, if I'm against you, if I'm Josh, I'm against you with a bet like this, I say to myself, ooh, he really wants a call here. And so then actually the smaller bet size in the situation may actually tell me that it's time to fold. Whereas if you bet something more like 480, 500, 550 even, that may tell me, oh, he's looking to buy the pot. It could look like a bluff, in which case you can get called off by a weaker hand, although there really aren't many weaker hands here other than made flushes. And actually made flushes could call a bet of 400 or 500. So I'd probably bet a little larger here for that reason. Josh turns around and rightly re-raises you. He's got the absolute second nuts, only pocket sevens, is ahead. And so he re-raises you to 760. If I'm over here, the same thing I told you about the way your bet looks, his min raise looks really strong also. Now, to me, because ace king is so unlikely, I would still be calling this over here at this point. Now, remember, doesn't mean that it was the right move to get here like this. I mean, we bloated this pot tremendously earlier on. I think there was a re-raise on the flop that I missed talking to you guys about, which I definitely don't like doing, if I'm not mistaken. But in any case, in this scenario, I would be calling at this point over here. I wouldn't have gotten myself in a situation where I'm playing out of position such a big pot, with a hand like this. But once I'm here, 360 to call a pot of 1480, with an ace where he's likely to be doing this with ace queen, ace jack, ace 10, ace 9, with all his different aces, I would have to be calling here at this point. I would. I think that's the right move here, which oh, no, then we shove all in. I don't like that at all. The shove all in, and I think this is something that we've seen this with yesterday's hands also, and I think this is a really, really important lesson for you to learn, is when you shove all in, you have to ask yourself, what do you hope calls here? At this point, when you're shoving all in, what are you up against? You're only up against either another ace, in which case you're chopping the pot, and so there's no point for you raising, or you're up against the hand that beats you, even though there are only two hands that beat you. But at this point, I certainly would not be raising. The only thing that calls you here are either things that split with you or things that beat you. There's nothing that you beat that calls here. So therefore, I personally, I think this re-raise at the end, we saw this both hands last night also, is that, is that on the river and I think on the turn on the hand last night also, where we raised when only hands that beat us call. This is a big leak I see. And if you plug this leak, that's going to save you a ton of money because just in those 3 hands from those last 2 days, and again, you would have lost all 3 hands. And some of them are heartbreakers. This one's a heartbreaker also, though I think you could have avoided it, with early on play. Again, when you're playing marginal hands out of position, you're going to very often find yourself in big pots that you lose where the guy is in the driver's seat, able to re-raise you and kind of like, look at you, wait for you to make mistakes and capitalize. We want to be in his position on the button, where we can do that to them. Very hard to play out of position, especially with middling aces. Yeah, but in any case, unfortunately, he of course calls and he rakes, a nice pot. Yeah, and he rakes the big pot in. So again, just to recap here for what it's worth, in my opinion, before the flop, I can get down with calling or raising big if my image is tight enough that I think I can get away with stealing that pot there, and then reassessing on the river. I'm reassessing on the flop. But as limped, once the flop comes, ace-8 out of position against 3 players is not a place to build. You don't want to build a big pot because when you build a big pot with a middling hand, you end up with a situation like this where you're playing a big pot in a situation like this. I would check and consider folding, if there's a lot of strength behind you, or maybe calling if the bet is small enough. I certainly wouldn't lead out. I certainly wouldn't lead out to that size. On the turn when the second ace comes, again, I certainly would not be. I think we missed it. I think I missed it, but you actually raised. You actually raised in 3-bet, or I think the pot got bigger than I realized on the turn with this ace card. Now that I think about it more, it was a horrible card for you. There's nothing that calls you that you're beating here. Every flush draw came in. Every better ace came in. Kings are not calling you. 7s are not calling you. That's the reality. They're just not calling you there. So I really don't like bloating the pot further on the turn. When you have again, remember this, it's a good axiom to know: big hand, big pot; small hand, small pot. And out of position, even big hand, sometimes you want to play small pot, because you get in a position where you lose big, when you're out of position. And this is a classic case of the position being used against you. But on the turn, I definitely wouldn't be betting. I definitely would be re-raising. I can't fold is the truth on the turn, hoping to hit the full house, but I would check and then call. And I'd be checking on calling the turn, even if it's a big bet. Then I may even be check folding, even with an ace, because what else does he have? I'm behind everything. When the river pairs, though, when the river pairs the 7s, now you have aces full of 7s. The only realistic hand that beats you is ace king, and that's really not that realistic. So at that point, I think I have the best hand, and at that point, I would be betting as you did. I would bet a little larger even as you did because that would look bluffy. But when he re-raises you, I'm not even ever thinking about, re-raising him all in. I'm thinking about whether to call him or to fold. And again, we got into a point where we were playing a very big pot, and I think that's avoidable. And I think that's something you should focus on learning, how to control pot size. And one of the ways to control pot size is by not betting, and not betting large, certainly, because we bloated this up. So, I hope, again, I think you're learning. I think you're getting better. I think we, I really admire that you're putting these out there for review. I think it's really healthy. I think that this is how you get better. I went through this also, losing a lot of hands that afterwards I learned how to play from. They said, listen, you go to college costs money. This is another way for an education. Is you paid for this education here tonight, but learn from it. It's important that you learn from it. Okay. Any case, good night, guys.